We're just waiting for you, Colin. We can start now. Right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which has been conducted from the Chamber and remotely to Microsoft Teams. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we will begin, I will ask Councillor Johnny McKeever to lead us in prayer and remind you all the meetings now being recorded as well.
Nahar Taniev, as in Tartank with the Rilla, Shoning Haram, be Kanahan Hills and Humor, as Kudyak Fatharas in the Hat in Stacker Line, as a Tartank with the Shon, the human Hakaver Nurigation Yanu. As in Tartank and a Lokobrach had the Hashkin Shaw, Yanudicial Gain, Shon and Canyon Shaw, as a Tartank ice in the Had Canyon the Huders Dog and Kudyak. As in Gerik another gain, Sturig, as Kinnikshin Cogunian, a Coramach, as a dollar Yanufame and a Huladan Hashin Yorruchu. As in Geri can me cool the rain, as Hashin Doctron Ashkin had a Yanudicial gain on the hill, as Manavami Grak, Nikshinko Cogunian, and the fame and a dang, Hesna Helen and Fat. As in Tartank, no look operach geleerd. Achas yn gahara di cain ych oros yn nachal gabi gobl cwryn ty yw, gybys y ffagal y gachar, agos ffagin ffagal mar ha. A mi smaen ych gahara di dolach ni cloj, fa cwryn hio ymydach blion y genwyn dat asangach gain ik gach canu. Agos cwydych tartaig i sy'n nobr yn fod y rhain i ag sgibyn y galig har na blionach yn. Agos hacw drag ag yn gwadach yma'r cawn y fad i rhain yn ys sgan i iawn. Ha mi cydych y tank ei fashion, maddi Sheena. Ha iad op het weer van Janu gan y chwrle, harne blionach yn. Agus ha sy'n oamsach dwlich gyfer ei ffagal, a ha sy'n i gyrru gynnod i niarst agus tolach ys eintyn, ysbych dei haid o Janu yn lliaddard, agus gymi yw cwl ar i, agus tord i cydych y sy'n rwtsym i ha sy'n i Janu. Ha sy'n gyrru ar lam yn ychwyd, ti Michael Iadson ha bron yn rast. Cai fagin luchgyl na carriage'n na luchgobrach. Agus gyn haumwad, agus gyn hwgwad le cainach yn snogger na lach yn y galafydd y cwrs yn y siar. As yn gyri ost gwad ysdi i at yn hatein cwydych ag yn aim sio. Agus gymi yn rhorach ag edasgo go slantio agus tord gaif niarst fer sŵr gaif fi na yn hwydych ag ydys gan y tiolich yn ach agus gan y carriage yn ach gan y lwch gobrich cwydych. As ni dierig gynwyr gaib y graag dydig y la, gan chwyr at rŵ awsgach cwrs yn hiar na môr gyna, so reit ma ieslaif gyfer le, scha glwys yn mi gybrach. Het cwyd yn ynys agos mae gain pech yn yr ywle, ysgach ddiast. Amen.
Tapperat, Johnny. In regard to the conduct of the meeting, a reminder of the following. If you are a member of the committee attending remotely, please leave your camera on and your microphone off. Officers attending remotely, please leave both off unless you are called to speak to a report or answer a question. A reminder to members and officers in the chamber of the queuing system. The chair controls the mics. First in the queue flashes green and the remainder are solid green. The chair will allow each flashing mic in, which will change to red. Only 2 mics on the floor will be red at any one time. If you wish to come back on a question, please leave your mic on, and officers speaking to the reports, I would advise you to do the same. Committee members will be given priority. In regard to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the Cornwallis website following the meeting. Items 14 and 18 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. And prior to moving into private, participants other than the relevant officer and members will be asked to leave the meeting. Before we go into the main items of the agenda, I would like to draw members' attention to the Air Services seminar next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. and encourage all members to attend. Jonathan Henkels of Loganair will be presenting, and it will give all members an opportunity to address any questions directly to him. My favourite topic, ferries and the many issues surrounding services were raised at the ferry stakeholder group last Wednesday. Robbie Drummond, Managing Director of CalMac, was unable to present to this series. However, he has given a commitment to present to the September series, and you will have the opportunity to address any issues directly with him then. Okay, so item 1, minute of meeting of Northern Roads Collaboration Joint Committee of 10th December 2021. This is for noting, and I believe the next meeting of that is in September sometime, once they know who the reps of the various authorities are. Myself and the Vice Chair and yourself would be expected to attend that. Yeah? Yes. Yeah? Okay. That's for noting. Minute of meeting of 8th March 2022, and that's for approval. Are we happy to approve? No? Yes? Yeah. Minute of meeting of 17th May 2022, and that's also for approval. Thank you. Item 4, declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items of the agenda. It would be helpful if members expressed why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone or remotely through Teams by using the raise hand function. Please ensure the declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item and you adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. I don't see any declarations. Item 5, Performance Management 2021-22, Quarter 4, it's a year end, Property and Infrastructure. This report provides an overview of the Property and Infrastructure Business Plan progress and related performance for Quarter 4, year end 21-22. Colin Mackenzie will speak to the report and answer any questions. Colin Mackenzie is currently Head of Property and Infrastructure based in Assets, Finance and Resources Department. Colin, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions on business plan performance, as you see in the report. If I can maybe just draw your attention to paragraph 8.1. That's the section on financial performance. There are a couple of underspends there. One on marine operations, which is significant, but that's from a late credit that came through into the department, and that sum will be carried forward for investment into the infrastructure in this financial year. Business support, there's an underspend there, which again can be made up of grants in relation to EV infrastructure. And you will notice that the winter maintenance budget was overspent by £86,000 over last winter, which wasn't a severe winter by any means. The IT underspend there of 344,000 is quite a sum. It's made up of a number of elements, one being returned potential borrowing. The detail is in section 8 there, but we're looking at reinvesting that again into resources for IT corporately over this coming year. I'm not going to go through all the detail of the report, but just to give you some highlights or some concerns or challenges for the future years. Our repairs and maintenance budgets, whether it's for property or for roads, remain continually under pressure. I'm sure you'll see that yourselves in going around the estate or across the road network. We will be needing capital investment in property and in roads in the future. As you're probably aware as well, the capital sums for future years are likely to be very scarce. So we will have to look at ways to be able to manage the money that we have, but also look to see how we can maximise what additional monies we can take in. In relation to construction costs just now are increasing to such an extent that nobody will pin their colours to the mast and say what things will look like percentage-wise even over the next few months. The Ukraine situation has created some difficulties for us in construction, and just in relation to roads maintenance, the cost of unavailability of bitumen the costs have increased, the availability has been reduced to the extent that the works we're doing just now in surface dressing have been affected by the quality of bitumen that we're using. We found that it's not as good as the previous product in humid or wet conditions. And unfortunately, over the last few weeks, that's the conditions we've been having. So we'll be looking at learning from that into the coming years as well. But that's just one of the practical difficulties that we're seeing in construction just now in relation to roads. Construction costs in general are increasing, and we're seeing that even getting contractors on board to deliver projects is difficult just now. Locally, contractors are very busy, and even getting tender returns just now are proving quite difficult for building works. The construction industry itself is facing a bit of a crisis nationally, in that there's no trainees really going in. You know, so the trades, the traditional trades that we were seeing going into the construction industry, and even the professional entrance into construction are reducing to the point that there's the highest number of unfilled posts since records began in the construction industry. Recruitment is therefore very difficult. Painting a bleak picture on construction, so just we will be offering members more information on this as it becomes available. Energy costs are increasing, so a lot of the services we provide are suffering from that diversion of funding. So when it comes to looking at energy efficiency, a lot of it starts with how we use it, but the way costs are increasing, it's going to create more and more of a challenge for us in years to come. We do have very challenging emission reduction targets as well through the net zero and climate change initiatives. And again, that'll be coming back to members with more detail as that's developed. And finally, climate change adaptation is something that we in the Western Isles have to have a close eye on, whether it's the change in weather patterns, which may affect travel, transportation, but also now how it affects our coastline. So again, that's work that officers will be involved in over the coming months and years. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report, Chair.
Thank you for that overview and painting that very bleak picture, Carl.
Sorry, Chair.
Any questions, anybody? Councillor McKeever.
Tabla near Carach, my bringing hit the repairs and maintenance. Boarding in quad of the east, the company I horse on the like in 3 billion Mac Reber and Amor had the crack plastic, got the misk jar, has Sablik Tor, who jar is Tor Koskish. Ha could Sablik again plastic on the landfill. Agus hashin genu Sablik more could had it erdiges more Janus and 3 billion na yede. Agus had an issue we go by the Fagalabe, agus Fag Sassing, agus Fagaminor per fat, agus Biach quad the east, where Kalayeman we Berlin Rus and the Shon. Fiach big and Barakain and a Nochtaki.
I think we've gone through this before, and I think the Northern Roads Collaboration Committee did some work on this, and we had Stuart Wallace give us a presentation, but feel free to.
Yes, I'm happy to look at anything that's going to benefit or make our road operations more efficient. It's not as simple as taking the plastics we have locally it would have to be taken off island and processed. But as the chair mentioned, it's such an issue throughout Scotland that the Northern Roads Collaboration Joint Committee have been commissioning reports on it and have a close eye on what's going on. So I'm happy to take further updates on that to future committees. Thank you.
We knew you were going to ask that anyway, so we're ready for it. Councillor McInnes.
Yes, I was just wondering, it's a bleak overview that we're hearing of, the economy in general, and particularly the construction and the energy costs are all impacting. But you did make reference to the recruitment into the construction industry. And I was wondering what the Construction Training Board are doing, to promote careers in that sector, and whether, certainly the college used to be involved very much in the building trade as we knew it, with different trades that were there. So I'm just wondering, what, with regards to particular modern apprenticeship schemes, and whether local companies are taking advantage of what is clearly, money that's available from the government to train up their apprentices.
Colin, are you up to speed with that?
Partially. We have seen a larger uptake over the past 2 years in apprenticeships. I know that Dolina Smith has been attending a workshop recently on construction recruitment and what the government are looking to put into that. So she'll probably be able to give a better update on that than I can just now. But I will catch up with her and discuss the outcome of that with her. We have been meeting with some local groups as well, just to make the picture known. And I think it's well known within the local contractors as it is just now, because they're having difficulties with some key trades. Even machine operators are having difficulty getting people to go for the jobs, or even when it comes to training, getting them on relevant training courses. So it's a very wide issue. I don't have all of, in fact, I don't have a fraction of the answers for you, Councillor McInnes, but I think it's something as a council that it's one area that we need to have a focus on, and hopefully be able to give further reports on any improvements within recruitment over future committee series.
Thank you, and you'll follow that up with yes. Okay. Any further questions? Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing you down in the corner there. No, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, I think Mr. McInnes made a really important point about dialogue with the Construction Industry Training Board. And I recall in the last term that we had dialogue actually with the industry itself here on the islands at a member officer level. So it would be worthwhile possibly resuming that dialogue with the industry to discuss, among other things, training and apprenticeships.
Yes, I've had individual meetings with quite a few of the contractors locally. It's just been a general discussion, but the key themes coming out have been the increased costs to the contractors, be it through fuel or the not being able to use red diesel anymore. That's created quite an additional cost, which will be passed on to the purchasers of the service that they're providing. The availability of materials and the cost of material, the cost increases in certain materials, that's been a key issue, but also training and recruitment. So it's been very useful having these discussions, but it's just showing a common theme, and it's now about translating that into what we can do for local actions. But it is a national problem as well. So we're not on our own as far as that goes. And again, it's about linking in with what is happening nationally, so that we can look at the local situation and see what we can do ourselves. But again, it's having that picture of how things are developing nationally as well.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I didn't realise that CITB was going to be discussed. I'd like to declare an interest as a been involved in a group that's funded by CITB, will I have a salary? Thanks.
Okay, okay. Okay, any further questions? No, I don't think so. Oh, I'm not seeing that green light flashing at all.
Just, Chair, I'm going green here. 11.1, you mentioned there's going to be a bid for the Levelling Up Fund, Fund 50 million. How soon have we got to get that in?
6th of July.
So it's well on.
We have a draft transportation bid.
Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. There's a full report on the Policy and Resources Committee agenda tomorrow on all of our Levelling Up Fund bids.
Okay. No more flashing green lights. They're quite difficult to spot, actually, you know. Okay. Do members agree recommendation at 3.1? Yeah. Move on to item 6, performance management 21-22 quarter 4, and this is consumer and environmental services. This report provides an overview of the community's directed business plan progress and related performance for quarter 4, year end 21-22. The area of relevance to this committee is the municipal services function at paragraph 6.10 to 6.18 of the report. David MacLeod will speak to this item and answer any questions. David is head of municipal services and is currently based in the Communities Department and reports to the Director of Communities. David.
Thank you, Chair. If I start off by saying that we really do owe the frontline staff in waste and transport quite a considerable amount of thanks for keeping frontline services going throughout the pandemic. Last year, there was no waste or recycling collections missed and bus services returned back to normal. One thing that's a wee bit concerning in paragraph 6.11 is there seems to be an increase in the amount of residual waste that we're collecting in the bins to household and commercial premises, and that means that we're handling more waste and we're paying more in landfill tax. Something that we're trying to address, we've got funding from the Scottish Government's Recycling Improvement Fund, £846,000. That's allowed us to purchase bins to roll out curbside collection services to the areas of Lewis and Harris that don't have it, and also to provide new glass collection banks. You can see the banks across the road. We're just waiting for the labels to be applied, and then they'll go out into service. The bins will start getting delivered in July, so in the next 2 to 3 weeks we should have the bins going out. We've also got a battery-powered refuse collection vehicle, which we will use within the routes close to the town and close to both Creed Park and also Bengrove landfill. The range is appropriate for that use, and it will add to our emissions targets alongside our hydrogen-powered RCV. We've got a dual-fuel hydrogen diesel RCV on the fleet at the moment. Bengrove landfill, the new cell is substantially complete. It will be operational in July. We have to be careful what we put in, so it will just be refuse from the bin collections initially to allow a layer of sort of softer material. So we'll be running the tail end of the old cell for a few months before we're fully operational. This cell does not have a huge life, so we will be looking almost immediately to start planning for the next cell, but the next one should at least be a bit more cost effective in terms of the shape of it. It'll give us more capacity for the sort of area of ground that we need. We, like Callum McKenzie, my colleague, was saying, we do have a problem attracting qualified staff in most of our services. Drivers, both in PCV and HGV, are at a shortage on a national level, and we are no different to that. We've also experienced difficulty getting qualified plant and machinery operators to work on our sites. and it's something that we're going to look at in terms of training, whether we can get people in that we can add to the existing training that we've got in a more proactive way than we have in the past. And we're still working with Scottish Government to see if we can come up with a solution to the 2025 ban on biodegradable municipal waste to landfill. We haven't found any solution other than the sort of, it's not really a solution, but shipping waste to the mainland for processing is technically a solution, but it's not a viable one given the available capacity on the ferries at the moment. So we are still working to see whether there's something we can do locally to either pre-treat or to fully treat the waste. If you go to the financial performance, we have had a difficult year. It's no doubt in terms of the waste arising increase means that there's more landfill tax. We've had a lot of vehicles that are coming to the end of their life at the same time, and that has resulted in higher costs for maintenance, and also we've had to hire in vehicles from time to time. We're looking to see what we can do. There is a bit of an underspend from the last financial year that will help us get close to parity and keep us within tolerance, but we will be bringing some measures to the next series to see what we can do to deal with some of these costs. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the rollout of the 3 weekly collections and the new bins, curbside collections, Mr. MacLeod, how do you intend to communicate this to households? I know you're talking about rollout in July. I mean, that's just around the corner now. I'm thinking of the area of Park now, which is part of my ward, who obviously didn't have the facility of the blue bins till now. And there's a community council meeting on next Thursday night. So is there anything that we can bring to the community council beforehand?
We're just finalising the leaflets with Zero Waste Scotland. We have got some support, although there was no direct revenue support with the rollout. They have given us some support with the design of leaflets, and once we've got that, we will be leaflet dropping every house in the new areas along with the bins. We have learned quite a bit from lessons of the past. When we rolled out the food and garden waste collections, we didn't engage properly, and the effectiveness of that service has never been as good as it could be. But when we rolled out the blue bins to other areas, we made sure that we engaged with the communities, and we will do that this time as well.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. MacLeod, on that. Does that mean that the bins, the leaflets, what timeline will there be between the leaflets dropping to people's door before the bins arrive, or are the bins going to arrive with the leaflets?
There will be a bit of both in that, depending on the area, the bins and the leaflets go out together, but there will be a period of time before the service actually commences. So it's not as if we're throwing out a bin and then it will be collected the next week or so. So there will be a bit of time.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. It was on 6.9 and item 4 on that section, fuel poverty, and it was regarding the insulation problem we're having in terms of the new regulations that passed 2035.
Nothing to do with you, David, is it?
No.
No?
That's not for this
That's
committee.
not for this committee. Is that for you tomorrow, Donald?
Okay.
We go from 6.10 to 6.18, Gordon, I think. Yeah. Okay. Councillor MacLean. Kenneth.
Hi there. Just a couple of questions regarding Barra specifically. It might be an issue elsewhere as well. I'm not entirely sure. For a number of years, we've been trying to get bins put in quite public places where there's a lot of tourists, and I can say for a fact that it has been years we've been trying to do this, because I was in the community council past 3 years, and every single year we tried to do it. There's generally an issue of rubbish and waste and litter being thrown here, there, and everywhere. You know, on the road, on the beach, fields, or domestic bins being filled up by camper vans and tourists. Is there any plans to provide additional bins in hot sort of tourist hotspots?
David?
Thank you, Chair. It is a very difficult one because we back in the days before landfill tax and the costs of disposal grew exponentially, we were quite liberal with our supply of bins, including the large green 1100 bins for public access. Now we find that if we leave these out, they are used and abused by either by commercials or by people who shouldn't be putting that kind of waste in these large bins. So we tend to use the smaller bins where we can. We try to direct camper vans and the like to our household waste recycling centres, where they can not only get rid of waste, but they can also recycle the recyclable waste that they produce. And that's been a bit of a slow progress, but we are seeing a bit of an improvement on that. What we have found is if you put out bins that are not of sufficient capacity and they're abused, then it almost attracts bagged waste like a magnet, and with the frequency of collections, then that creates a bigger problem than not having the bin in the first place. So it is a difficult challenge, but we are looking to see what we can do to improve things, and that's all we can do within the scope of resources that we have.
But wouldn't that just, while I appreciate it's more expensive to deal with waste now, at the end of the day, the waste has to go somewhere. If it doesn't go to landfill, or if it's not recycled and there's no bins to facilitate that, then it just ends up in the sea or in ditches, or it just ends up in the environment.
Yeah, I have to follow up, Chair. As I said, if we can direct people who are not residents to the household waste recycling centres that we have, then they can dispose of their waste properly and correctly and legally, rather than resorting to illegal disposal of waste. And that's our aim, is to try and get them to do the right thing and deal with the waste that they generate themselves.
Yeah, thank you, David. I know.
Okay, thank you.
It's a problem everywhere, and we are trying to deal with it. Yeah. Any more questions? Councillor McInnes.
Yeah, it's just under 6.23, and looking at the transfer from the Crown Estate to the Corla on Seabed Leasing Powers.
Is that outside our remit again?
Oh, I see.
Councillor McInnes. We're at 6.10 to 6.18. I think this comes up at Donald's committee tomorrow.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. See, you're getting off lightly, David. Anybody else? No, okay. So insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, the members agree recommendations at 3.1. Yeah. Okay, if we move on to item 7, local government benchmarking framework results 2021 Communities Department. This report details the local government benchmarking framework 2021 results for the Communities Department and seeks approval of the priority areas chosen for service improvement. The service areas of relevance to this committee are municipal services and property and infrastructure and CO2 emissions, and both Colin McKenzie and David McLeod are available to answer any specific questions for their service areas. I don't know if either of you want to add or just take questions. So you want to say something, Colin? Okay, right on.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to draw members' attention to the appendix to the report, and particular to the section for property and infrastructure in Appendix 3. So I think that's page 17 onwards in the report. There are graphs there showing the costs off-road per kilometre for maintenance. If you're following that graph with me, it shows that we're the second best performing in Scotland. The graph actually reads in the amount of spend we have available for roads. So it can't be read as being, this is good. We don't spend a lot of money on roads. And you'll see the graphs there showing how we've been spending less year on year on roads. The following reports to that percentage of A-class roads that should be considered for maintenance treatment. You'll see that there's been an improvement over subsequent years, and we've probably levelled off a bit on the percentage there. And the reason for that is that we have been targeting our investment in our classified roads. So if you then go to the graph that shows the percentage of unclassified roads that should be considered for maintenance treatment, you're seeing a sharp spike in that percentage. So more roads are requiring maintenance treatment, and unclassified roads form about 40% of our network. So the picture that's painting is that our main roads, while reasonable, you're seeing that the unclassified roads, so the side roads, are deteriorating in condition. So that was just to help with the interpretation of these graphs as far as roads go. There's other graphs there that shows the condition and suitability of buildings, and there's some on carbon emissions, which I'll just happy to take questions on if there's any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we have an item on roads later on anyway, so David, do you want any questions for Callum at this time? Bearing in mind we do have a further report on roads later. Yeah. David?
Thank you, Chair. It was really just to bring to the committee's attention the data on percentage of waste that's recycled. We have moved up considerably since the anaerobic digestion plant achieved the Pass 110 status for the output. So we're now sitting, if you look at our family group in the benchmarking, we're now sitting below Scottish Borders, who have a lot more garden waste and green waste than we do, and also are a lot closer to markets. But we're sitting above Aberdeenshire and above all the islands now, which I think is pretty good for us being over on this side of the Minch.
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions for David or Callum? No? Okay, thank you. Insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, the members agree recommendation 3.1. Yeah, okay, thank you. Item 8, Stornoway Town Centre Permit Subcommittee, appointment of members. The Town Centre traffic orders prohibits vehicle access to the pedestrian area in the town centre between the hours of 10:30 AM and 6 PM. The remit of the subcommittee is to consider applications for access to the area within restricted hours. The report seeks the appointment of 5 members open to all Corla members, and it is suggested that consideration be given to members based in Lewis wards. So I will now call for nominations and seconders, please, for these appointments. Convener.
I propose Malcolm MacDonald. Councillor Malcolm MacDonald.
Johnny McKeever seconded.
All the Stornoway members who are on the committee. Wherever they are.
Do we have enough Stornoway members on the committee? So 5 there.
But Ian McCauley is also from Stornoway, the committee. Are you on it, Duncan?
Can we name them then? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we have them.
Yes, I can confirm. Then we can appoint Duncan McInnes, Ian M. McCauley, Malcolm MacDonald, Gordon Murray and George Murray, who's not here, and if he's willing to accept that appointment in his absence.
Are we all happy with that? Thank you for the suggestion, Councillor Crichton. Made life a lot easier. Okay, move on to item 9. Transport Scotland's Strategic Transport Projects Review, better known as STPR2. This report seeks homologation of the Cornwall's response to Transport Scotland's second STPR2 public consultation. The Cornwall's response is appended to the report. Angus Murray, Principal Strategy Manager based in the Chief Executive's Department, is unwell, and Linda Cunningham, Corporate Policy Manager, will speak to this item. Anyway, I was wanting to make comment on Angus, who is leaving the Cornwall's employment later this week, actually. Angus has been with the Cornwall since June 2000, a period of 22 years. It was following his appointment to the role of Principal Strategy Manager that he and I came to work closely together due to this role in strategic transportation. I would like to personally thank Angus for his help and support to me over the last 3 years, for which I am very grateful. Also to give thanks on behalf of the committee and the Cornwall for all the work he has done in his time with us. We will miss Angus and wish him all the very best for the future. And myself and the Chief Executive will miss the one-line quips in his emails on such things as the island's connectivity plan. I always looked forward to the one line, so I'm certainly going to miss that. Linda.
Hello, yes, Chair, thank you. Just this report seeks homologation from the Council for a response to the second STPR2 public consultation, and a response is appended to the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions on STPR2? No? Okay. Do members agree the recommendations at 3.1? Yeah, okay, thank you. Item 10, Stornoway Abattoir update. This report provides an update on the 2021 operation of Stornoway Abattoir and seeks approval for the charge proposed for season 2022. The findings of a recent building conditions survey are also provided, indicating works required up to a cost of 35k. Stornoway Abattoir provides a crucial service to the Crofton community and one that we all wish to continue. Ian Norman Campbell will speak to the report and answer any questions. Ian is the Cleansing Services Manager and is based at Marybank. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as mentioned, the report gives an overview of the 2021 season and considerations as we move into the 2022 season beginning in August. The 2021 season was proven very successful in so much as we went through 3 audits. 2 of them were external and 1 internal. The 2 external audits were through Food Standards Scotland and Quality Meat Scotland, who were delighted with the overall performance of the abattoir and the staff that were within the facility. The official veterinarian also, who oversees the day-to-day operations, also reported that the throughput was fantastic and the quality going through the abattoir was great, as well as the work provided by the staff. One of the things identified with the internal audit was processes, in so much as the system we've been using is quite historic, and a suggestion has been made to bring us in line with the current core systems, using the Civica data system, so we're able to take in our income as it comes through, and any outstanding invoices, the automatic reminders are generated to ensure that we get all the money coming through at the season that we expected to have coming through. The Appendix 1 shows the throughput numbers that have come through the abattoir last year, and it shows that we've had quite a buoyant year. Appendix 2 shows the pricing as it was for 2021 and the proposed pricing for 2022, which is a 5% increase on the costs. Lastly, the building conditions survey of Appendix 3 shows, that there is suggestions for improvements to be taken place to the facility. The audits that have taken place from Food Standards Scotland, Quality Meat Scotland, concentrated in the internal fabric of the building, which is perfectly satisfactory for the operation of an abattoir. But the building conditions survey, which we commissioned, was to look at the overall condition of the building, and there has been suggestions made to improve the external appearance of the building, with costs identified at about 25k, but that could increase with the costs of material rising. So happy to take any questions.
Convener.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Ian Campbell for bringing forward this report to the committee. I think it's very welcomed. Okay, no one welcomes, that the prices at the abattoir are going up this coming year, but we have to look at the real situation, where last year the shortfall was 16,000, and I think we have to look at covering our costs here. And also pleased to see that a bit of work is going to be done to the building. But delighted with this report, and thank you for bringing it forward to the committee.
Thank you, Convener. Any further questions, anybody? Councillor Ronald Fraser first, then Councillor Donald McSween.
Yes, Chair, thank you, and thank you, Ian, for this very good report. I have two brief questions for Ian. Initially at 6.5 of the report regarding invoicing, can Ian outline what are the methods of payment available to users of this service?
Okay, thank you. We've been looking at, historically we were taking things in as a cash payment, and we've been investigating the possibility of taking a card reader system in. However, having spoken to those who provide the cash service system in the council, it was suggested we could actually take payments by card when a user is in the facility, booking their animals in or collecting their animals. So we're able to do it in the same way as you'd pay something like your council tax or your house insurance over the telephone by giving your card number, your expiry date, and your 3 digits at the back. So it allows us now to be able to control the income, at a far swifter level.
Yep, thanks for that, Chair. And my second question, referring to 6.6, is this paragraph in any way indicating that some carcasses were not paid for?
As we took the audit forward, it was an internal audit. We asked internal audit to come in and look at our systems to ensure that we were performing the way we should be, because as was pointed out, the operating costs, we're trying to keep our operating costs to a minimum, and our income to be able to cover our operational costs. We don't want to be increasing charges any further than necessary. However, there has been situations in the past where animals have been booked in, and they've been booked in as a number of animals to be collected by a number of people, and the payment has been falling with the person coming in to collect. That in itself leaves us open to being in a position where animals would go through the facility and potentially be collected without payment. It then becomes very difficult to come back to chase up when it's been one person making the booking in for, say, 10 animals and 10 individuals coming in to collect them and relying on payment there and then. So moving forward, the owner of the animal booking them in is responsible for the payment.
Okay, does that answer your question, Ronald?
Yes, it does. And well, one final follow-up point to that is: would you have a figure of how many carcasses haven't been paid for in the last year? Is it a small figure, or is that available?
Initial indications show it as being a small figure. However, that unless we address that at the moment, that small figure could increase rapidly. So it's a protection system for us moving forward.
So it won't happen again?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ian.
Okay, Councillor Donald McSween.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. Just on the 16k shortfall, just from my own information, how much of that shortfall is because of the works required at either end? Is it basically, I'm asking, does it wash its own face when it's open to users?
That is the intention of the facility, is just to cover its own costs. We're not in the position where we want to be making any form of profit, same as we don't want to be in the position to make any form of loss. I can't continue to increase the prices to be able to cover the operational costs with looking back at a system which is potentially problematic. So by increasing the costs to cover the overall price just now, could be in the position to actually turn people away from the facility. So that's why.
Sorry, can I just clarify what I meant there? Yes. Though it was so open, say August to Christmas, but my understanding is you're open for like a month beforehand or a few weeks beforehand. How much of the shortfall is for like when you're fully staffed but not able to, because you've got to get the chillers up, you've got to do some maintenance and all these things. Is any of that shortfall when it's not open to paying customers?
No, the shortfall is in relation to the operating period as in August to December.
You happy with that, Donald? Yeah?
Yeah, Pablo.
Okay. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify on the internal audit investigation that Ian Norman was talking about, there will be a follow-up report coming to a future meeting of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee on that. So.
Okay, thank you, Angus. Yeah. Okay, any more questions? No? Okay, so do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Right, item 11, Waste Management Service Update. This report provides an update on waste management services, including successful funding bid of 846K, which will assist the rollout of new curbside recycling and 3 weekly waste collection services to all areas of Lewis and Harris. It also details the challenges and opportunities of impending changes to legislation. I've asked David MacLeod, who we've met previously, to speak further on these and other updates and answer any questions. David.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've already covered the Recycling Improvement Fund award. There is a slight misprint in our typo that I made when I was writing this. It's 846K, which is still a fairly decent size amount of money from the Scottish Government. So that money has effectively been committed, and we'll start the rollout, as I said earlier, in July. We have been labelling bins. We've labelled about 3,000 bins ready to go out, and the glass banks are being labelled as we speak. The electric refuse collection vehicle should be with us in September, all being well. It's the first twin compartment battery electric RCV in Scotland, which is quite good. And in paragraph 7.1 onwards, I mentioned the changes in legislation. There is a ban on biodegradable municipal waste to landfill that's coming in at the end of December 2025. That effectively means that anything that is coming in that's of a municipal nature, which is either household or commercial, that has any biodegradable material in it, we won't be able to landfill it unless we get some sort of derogation or exemption. That's still something that's a possibility, but we would rather find a technical solution to this if we possibly can. We're looking at options for local treatment, including waste to hydrogen, but that's very speculative because it's not proven technology, and we'd really need to get significant external funding to test that. The deposit return scheme, which some of you may have heard of, it has now been delayed until 16th of August 2023, but basically you'll be paying 20 pence on any drinks container apart from milk, and you'll get that back when you return it. There will be a system that allows you to recover your deposit from either a shop or a retailer or some other form of return system that allows you to access that. It's probably not going to make much difference if you spend £20 on a nice bottle of wine, but if you're spending £2.40 on cheap cans of fizzy drink, and you're getting 12 of them, you're going to be almost paying double. So it's going to have an impact on some people more than others. But I think it will work, and it will get things back, and it'll allow things to be recycled. It'll also take away the obligation from us. So that means that we won't have to spend so much on shipping recyclates to the mainland and barely getting the cost of recovery back from them. We've also been looking at the glass banks. We've got the hooklift style banks that are sitting over in the car park just now. And we can use our bigger lorries that we've got a fairly decent fleet of to service these vehicles. We have one in-house smaller MacLift skip lorry. This vehicle has been off the road for quite a long time due to a failure of one of the arms. It's now considered beyond economic repair, and a new one is at roughly 120k. We are asking the committee to approve the phasing out of in-house MacLift skip operations on the basis that there are currently 2 private sector options, so that will keep the price competitive. And we don't really have enough business anymore to support the income that you need to generate to run this service profitably. So the recommendation 3.1c is to agree the phasing out of in-house MacLift skip operations. That will allow us not to have to seek for a replacement lorry and spend 120k on that, and it allows just to consolidate our skip operations using the larger hooklift vehicles. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions for David? Anybody? No? Okay, do members agree that you'll have to move? And
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Just to ask, is there any prospect of relaxing the requirement for non-commercial vans to be able to use the Creed Park facility? Absolutely see the point in commercial vehicles, the necessity of booking online, but it really, it came in with the COVID pandemic, of course, but I think the time has now come, and I've received a lot of representations to relax perhaps that for non-commercial.
Chair, I'm happy to respond to that. I think we had been looking at this as a system even before COVID came in, so it's not something that was done specifically in response to COVID, but it was something that was useful during the COVID period. Most local authorities now have some sort of booking system, particularly for vans, some for all vehicles you have to book in. But one of the issues that we've had in the past is that if a householder hires a van or a pickup on a Saturday and they arrive at Creed Park with waste that is not household by nature, so construction or demolition waste, for example, there is nowhere to put that other than to take it back. And if they've hired a vehicle, what do they do with it? So by booking it in, we can make sure that that scenario doesn't happen, that we actually give advice at point of need rather than when it's too late, because on a Saturday when Household Waste Recycling Centre is open and the majority of people aren't working and are able to take stuff in, Benidorm is closed, and that Benidorm would be the appropriate disposal point for that type of material. So that's always been an issue. We don't want to be in a position where we have a sole worker, a lone worker on a Saturday having to deal with somebody who's in the position where they paid for hire of a vehicle and then being told that they have to take the Benidorm, which isn't open till Monday. And I think the system in general is working well for both in terms of what's happening with materials coming into the site, and also we haven't seen any significant arisings of fly tipping as a result of this. So I think the system, although it's a wee bit more difficult than just being able to turn up anytime, it's done online. You can do it without having to speak to anybody, and you can book in. And for the majority of people, it does seem to be working quite well. Obviously, it doesn't suit necessarily people who are not taking household waste in.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Mr. McLeod. And the whole purpose of the recycling park is for create a greater, greener environment. But the point's been made to me that as a result of people not being able to use their vans, they're making more runs back and forth from the dump in smaller vehicles that have access and putting out more emissions.
But surely it's easier just to go online and book a slot if you've got access to a van. It's the ones that don't have access and having to hire, particularly on a Saturday, as I say, when they've paid money to hire a van and then they've been knocked back at Creed with nowhere to go. And that's the good chance that's going to end up getting fly tipped somewhere.
Thanks for that, Mr. McLeod.
Okay, thank you, David. Do members agree that recommend?
With your permission, sir.
Yeah.
What Councillor Crichton says there, I've had that as well. But what people are doing is, David, is they're going home and they're breaking it up and they're putting it into the bins, into the black bins. That's what they've been telling me as well. That they're breaking it up and putting it, reducing it. So in one sense, you may be thinking that you're but on the other, you're getting more into the landfill, which you don't want. I'm just mentioning that.
Do you want to respond to that? We're not going to win this one, David.
We're happy to look at it again, but I think at the end of the day, if we're providing a system that's for householders and for household waste specifically, and we're by putting a booking system in, I don't really think that anybody who's got their own vehicle can't find a way of either phoning in a booking or us going onto the Coroner's website to do it. It's fairly straightforward. But we're happy to, we have done a wee bit of survey work, but we're happy to do a wee bit more survey work just to see what's what.
Yeah, it might be worth doing that. Yeah. Okay, is that it? Oh, yeah, it's the same word, people.
Yeah, there's a lot of rubbish down there. No, surely it's a matter of educating the people and promoting the system, as David is suggesting. If we get the words out to the people that this is the best way to do it, surely that would alleviate a lot of the problems.
So, education for the Lochatua Award.
Thank you, Chair. But we'll make sure that what we can do is look at maybe put something into the local newsletters as well with the links and Lochatua News.
Is that the award-winning paper? Yeah. Okay. Huh? Oh, the Queen's Award. I thought I'd read something. Yeah. Malcolm.
Can I ask David? You're moving on to 3-week collections. Have you sorted out new routes yet? Because there'll be a greater, there'll be more bins put out. They'll be fuller, and the vehicle capacity is affected. More returns to the tip, etc. And also, you've got to consider the Barra used Harris collections and how they get up to the tip. Have you worked out this, going by the number of bins or whatever criteria you're using?
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. We have done some modelling on it. We're not planning to roll out the 3-weekly to Euston Barra at the moment because they don't have food waste collections. We'll look at it again. That's a separate system down there. They've got a different recycling collection system, so it's one bin collected one fortnight and reverse. So we will look at that separately once we've rolled out Lewis and Harris. But in terms of the capacities, we have modelled all that. We will have to make changes to routes, but it will be done primarily on where the routes overlap. So we will move a wee bit back the way so that we've got slightly less houses, and then that will give us an opportunity maybe to move back into backfill once we know exactly where we are, because modelling is okay, but it never gives you a true picture. It only really looks at the number of houses. It doesn't take account of some houses are more occupants than others. So we will allow a bit of flexibility, and there will be some changes, but we'll try and keep them as the changes as small as possible.
Thank you very much, David.
Okay, thank you, David. I don't see any more lights. Thank you for that, David. Do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Finally, yeah, okay. Next item, Harbour Board. Before we take the following two items, I will provide a short brief of the Harbour Board role for the benefit of our new members and as a reminder to others. The Port Marine Safety Code sets out a national standard for port marine safety. The code applies to all harbour authorities and other marine facilities, berths and terminals in the UK. To ensure compliance with the code and its performance, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is the Harbour Board, and as defined in the code, is the duty holder individually accountable for marine safety. Training on the Port Marine Safety Code and the role of the Harbour Board will be arranged in the form of a half-day seminar at the September series of meetings, and I would stress that all members of the committee should attend. The seminar is open to all Cornwall members for their interest. And I think last time round, Kinnock, we had problems getting people to attend, didn't we? Yeah. So if you could all attend when the training is done, and it's our man from Harris again, isn't it? Yeah, another Herach, yeah, clever. Right, item 12, general directions for navigation. Further to a report to this committee on 2nd February seeking agreement to consult on the introduction of general directions for navigation at Cornwall harbours. This report details the outcomes of the consultation and proposes formal adoption of the general directions appended to the report. Kenneth Morrison, Harbour Master, is available to answer any questions. Kenny and his colleague Ian Buchanan, Assistant Harbour Master, form the small office-based marine services team that manage all the Cornwall harbours, piers and slipways. Kenny is based in the Harris office and reports to the Head of Property and Infrastructure in the Assets, Finance and Resources Department. Kinnock.
Thank you, Chair. This first report here is just the general directions for navigation, and this came before the previous committee as a result of an external audit, and as for compliance of the Port Marine Safety Code, we're sought to kind of introduce these general directions. As I said, the draft came before the committee in February, then went out to a 4-week consultation, and at Appendix 2 you'll see the kind of the consultation comments, and this just report recommends the approval of them, and happy to take questions on it.
Any questions for Kinnock on this from anybody? No. Okay. Do members agree the recommendation at 3.1?
Sorry, Councillor Robertson. The only thing I was going to ask was with regards to vessels coming into harbours, do they have to have appropriate harbour insurance, Kenny? And is that the case? Because I hear in many cases, you know, that vessels are in harbours that don't have the necessary insurance. If something, it's all right till something goes wrong. So I was just wondering, is it a condition of vessels coming into harbours to have the adequate insurance in place, or who checks it?
Didn't I know as soon as Mr. McInnes came a councillor, I'd have lots of questions on this one. I knew it
too, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Duncan. Yes, it doesn't form part of the general directions, but it forms part of our terms and conditions document. So you'll see it if any of my emails, you'd see a link to the terms and conditions. It's on our website and it's issued to all our users. So it forms part of that rather than the general directions.
Okay, you'll have to be.
It was just, you know, something that gets raised.
Yeah.
When I visit, particularly when I visit used.
Oh.
So they must be the worst offenders down there.
I couldn't possibly comment.
No, indeed. Ah. Right, do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Yeah. Item 13, Port Marine Safety Code and Designated Persons Audits Monitoring Update. This report provides an update on progressing recommendations within the 3-year external Port Marine Safety Code and the annual designated person audits. It is a statutory requirement for the service to be audited externally every 3 years and annually by the designated person. The outcomes and actions of these audits are then reported and monitored by the Harbour Board as duty holder. Kynach, have you got anything to add?
Nothing really to add. I mean, as these reports come up to regularly, will come to most committees of transportation and infrastructure, and we also report to the audit and scrutiny. I guess the designated person side of things will be touched in a report which will be taken in private later. So I'll take any questions on this one if there's anything.
Any questions for Kynach? No, okay. The members agree the recommendation of 3.1. Yeah. Item 14, which deals with staffing issues, will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. Now we move on to item 15, roads asset management planning. This report provides an update on the roads asset management planning processes and seeks approval of the roads asset management policy and the roads asset management plan for the next 5-year period. The draft annual status and options report 2021 is provided at Appendix 3 for noting. The current capital allocation for roads maintenance falls far short of that required to make significant improvements to a roads infrastructure. We were fortunate to receive additional funding last year of 6.6 million towards bridge maintenance, and all opportunities for additional funding is being actively explored by officers. Colin McKeever, Civil Engineering Manager, will speak to the detail of the report and highlight the challenges of managing the roads network. Colin.
Thank you, Chair. The asset management policy and plan presented in the report are fairly self-explanatory. They're overarching documents intended to formalise strategies and investment options and define service standards in relation to roads maintenance. In addition to the annual status and options report, or the ASOR, they're all aligned with the recommendations from the Scots Roads Asset Management project, which we have been part of since its inception. I won't say so much about the policy and the plan, but I'll try and pick out a few headline points about the ASOR. As the name suggests, it's supposed to be an annual document, but during the outbreak of the pandemic and the lockdowns and various other reasons, the last 2 years there was no ASOR presented to the committee. So we decided to restart that process using the data from 2020-21 year, because current year the survey data is still being collected for the 21-22 season. So we intend to present that year's ASOR later on this year. So this ASOR is presented in draft form. The document describes the condition of the roads asset, and that includes roads, footways, bridges, street lighting. It details the service that's achievable within the available budgets at the moment, and also gives options for future funding, or gives an indication of what effect that might have on road condition over a longer term period of 20 years. You'll see in the document there are a few graphs there which show a number of different scenarios for funding, some of them significantly more scary than others. To give a bit of context from the roads point of view, 10 years ago, so the 2013-18 capital programme, the roads allocation was £10 million. In the current capital programme, the allocation was £6 million. And that's split between all of the asset groups. The knock-on effect of this was that we had to, from a road surfacing point of view, in order to gain maximum benefit from a smaller budget, we had to front load that funding into the first 2 years of the capital programme. So we're currently in a situation where we have no capital programme for major resurfacing, and we haven't had for the last 2 years. This has had a couple of knock-on effects. It's had an impact on being able to have a bitumen supply contract with such limited funding. It's just not commercially viable to be able to get that kind of contract in place. So essentially, we're trying to maintain the network with very limited revenue funding at the moment, which extends to small-scale patching, some cutout patching, and pothole filling. On the back of that as well, everybody's well aware of how prices are increasing just now. Issues with, as Cala has mentioned, issues with availability of bitumen products and the prices of them have all started to really take a bite now. The specific situation we are in the islands is we have one bitumen production plant based in Stornoway. So that has a much bigger impact on the cost of doing any kind of surfacing work in the Southern Isles because of the transportation costs. To give a bit of context there, in 2019, the rough tonnage price for laid bitumen in Euston Barra was around about £200 per tonne. In 2021, we estimate it to be around about £350 per tonne. And Lewis and Harris, for the same, in 2019, it was around about £130 per tonne. And 2021, it's £220 per tonne. So that gives a kind of idea of the increase in costs that we're facing. It's not all about roads resurfacing. There are other things in there. Street lighting. Across all of the asset groups, we're trying to improve our inventory quality, so to know what we have and where we have it and what condition it's in. We've done a lot of work on the street lighting inventory, but one of the major problems we're seeing now in the street lighting asset is that the older lighting units we have are now becoming obsolete, and we can no longer source them replacement parts for these items. That leaves us with the only real option to replace with the higher cost LED units. So that has a high cost initially when you replace, but it does have a benefit in reducing energy consumption, and overall maintenance costs are generally lower with LED units. It was an interesting graph in the Azor which shows, although we are reducing our energy consumption on our street lighting stock, the costs are still rising. So costs are outstripping the improvements we're making. I think I'll stop there, but happy to take any questions.
So you need the entire sum of the next capital programme. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Well, that wouldn't be bad.
Right. Questions, anybody? Councillor MacLean.
Yes, thanks. For the report is good. Let me say first of all that having travelled, I've got family in Glasgow area and Aberdeenshire as well. I'd say that the state of the roads and the upkeep of the roads in this island are very good, excellent compared to some areas. But when I make a criticism, it's not meant in a destructive criticism. It's meant in another constructive. But one of the things, and I've mentioned it, I think I've sent an email round about the differentiation between adopted and unadopted roads, or as some people say, is adopted or unadopted or private roads. And I'll give an example in our ward, and Cala, you know quite a few areas where the Crofton Grazings Committee has given land for housing at a very reduced rate. The local people have built houses and built roads. And Norman, you and I are I've been through this with you as well. And in one area, I can just take, there's 12 houses being built, about half a mile of road. That road is never classified as an adopted road. It's always classified as a private road. How it's a private road, I cannot understand because it's got 12 different people living on it. But in the designation, it's 12. So when we're coming to potholes or whatever, as potholes appear, we cannot fix them because they're in the unadopted. And I understand in one sense that you have to designate between an adopted and adopted road, but I think there should be some form of leeway here in this, in situations like this. Because if I go to the other side of the road where there is council housing or HHP housing, that's adopted. Now, I don't know the difference between the two. So what I'm putting in just it's for discussion or for thinking about is that we should be looking at some areas in our districts, especially in the rural districts, where this has happened, where the Graces Committee have given chunks of land, where the people have built their houses, and they come to us, they come to me on a regular basis, and they say, can we get these patched up? And I says, you can't, it's unadopted. Yes, but we pay council tax. We pay tax, we pay the same as them, and yet we cannot get it. So I'm just putting a plea to look at this anomaly, as I called it in so I'm raising it here to log it in to say that we have to look at this some way.
It is our intention to have a seminar at some point to discuss some of these issues. And I know what you're talking about. I mean, most of the unadopted roads of the Western Isles are in north and south used, actually, you know. So we have more reason to be concerned than you in Lochatua with your one unadopted road.
Oh, I can't dispute that.
Colin, do you want to respond? Sorry.
Just from the point of view that an adopted road is usually, well, if it's a new road, it's built to a specific standard. So it will take, it's of sufficient width, it's got sufficient drainage, sufficient structure to be able to take the vehicles that service these roads. At planning application time, that's made clear to people that are building houses on unadopted roads that we cannot guarantee council services to them. So it's about specification. So there are a number of roads that have been basically tracks that have been tarred over. And the quantum of this through the Western Isles is quite large, and we need to be consistent about what we do. So I'm aware that other areas as well, so through the Northern Roads Collaboration Programme, they've got similar issues throughout Scotland. So what we will do is, in our seminar, we'll bring the issues to you. We'll show you, we'll give you the quantum of the scale of what we're talking about. But we cannot provide advice to people that are on unadopted roads just now. So it's not as if they can't get a contractor to fill potholes or indeed do it themselves. But the reliance has always been on the council. It's your responsibility to do. So if you're happy with that, Councillor McLean, we'll bring it up as a special topic in a forthcoming seminar and be able to debate it in more detail.
Yes, it'd be good to debate to talk. I won't talk debate of what's adopted and unadopted. If I go through a board tomorrow, I go to whom they did very much of that in planning when it was actually built.
You want to come back in, Colin, or are you finished?
No, I'm happy.
Yeah. I do take your point, Colin. It is a problem we all have, actually, you know, and especially those that have been told at the planning stage, you know, and they're not, you know, so. But yes, I think it's something we would want to deal with. Can we maybe have a discussion on Northern Roads anyway before? Yeah, so we can have a proper discussion about it. Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I look forward to this seminar. I've had a lot of representations over the last few months about this subject where someone's built a road and a track to it, and then within a few years there's 4 or 5 houses on that same track. You know, it's quite difficult to deal with. Is there anything in our policy where we adopt roads or?
the Corla used to have a policy, which has been superseded since, that I think the third person, now I might be a wee bit wrong on this, but the policy in general was that when properties were built, then it was the responsibility of the subsequent developer to bring the road up to an adopted standard. Now, that is quite onerous on a house builder here, to be able to take, say, a 100-metre or 200-metre section of road up to adoptable standard. So it was never a policy that was followed through on. If it was, then it would create that burden on house development. So I think in the seminar we'll touch on things like that. We'll give you a bit more information on what happens in other places. The location of adopted roads, unadopted roads throughout the Western Isles, and what the implications may be. But for the roads to be brought to an adoptable standard, you're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds generally. Whereas I think by looking at having adequate maintenance plans for them, such as ditching or some regular water shedding, that will actually help an awful lot. But I think it's the fact that it's the council in the past had £200,000 at one point per annum to spend on unadopted roads, which would be then shared out about wards. We don't have any budget for unadopted roads now, but we can advise on what communities can do for themselves. I know I've not answered your question fully there, but I think it is a matter of discussion for a future seminar.
I'm going to let the Chief Executive in first, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My recollection is last year the Corla through the Budget Board made available some funding, not very much, for assistance to unadopted road upgrade from as part of recovery monies, but that can form part of consideration at the seminar if that's the case.
Remember that?
I think what we looked at was a means of tying a development project into the need to provide access through an adopted road. But we can review that and just bring that back into the seminar as well.
Councillor MacLeod, did you want back in? Councillor Morrison, I think you were first, actually.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on the LED street lights. Is there much of a saving on LED lights compared to the old lights? I know some years ago we replaced the street lights in Stornoway at comparable cost, considerable cost really. And did it really materialise any saving? I know the visits to fused bulbs won't be so regular and manpower, but did it actually save any financial outcome?
Can you put the thing on?
I can answer.
Oh, you can answer, okay.
It initially gave us some savings on energy costs plus the maintenance costs. But as Colin mentioned in his report there, the increase in energy costs now have been offsetting any savings we have made through putting LED in. The reason we just did Stornoway at the time was that Stornoway was generally the only area that had the lights on dusk to dawn. We have taken decisions in rural areas to put the lights off at 11 o'clock, and then they're off from 11 o'clock until dawn, whenever the photocell takes the light back in. So with that switch off period, there was no economic payback on LED replacement in rural areas. But as Colin was saying, now we're forced into LED replacement, which does give us an energy saving and a carbon saving, but the costs or the standing charges that we have from electricity companies are not giving you the payback. So if you were to look at, is it cost effective to go and replace all our lights with LED just now, the answer would be no.
Happy with that? Mustafa?
Adopted roads. So, just a question about a safety issue. I think we'll just see it maybe a safety. In one of the fastest two ways in North US, both near the quarry, they're heading to Benbecula. A fast two-way comes into a single span. That usually causes near collisions all the time. Is there any plans in future to expand that span to a two-way to make sure? Because I can't see how we can sustain that, or are we waiting for an accident to happen? No. There's a two-way. I think you know the area I'm talking about. A two-way coming to a single span, and usually people come very fast, and then, especially tourist season, they don't see the arrow to give way to incoming traffic. So
It's the second one on the North Road Causeway. You had a bid into the bridges for that one, didn't you?
Yes.
it's, yeah.
There's no immediate plans for dualling other than the projects that we put in for the Levelling Up Fund. But if there are specific cases like that, then we can look at them individually and see what is there improved signage we could put in place or other methods to highlight the. But what we do find is that the local people can be more familiar with the roads and will tend to use them a bit faster than tourists, for instance. So as part of the road safety framework, there's lots of things that we can do. That'll include education and promotion of road safety. But if there are specific issues, then it's better off just to look at that one place and say, well, what can we do in this one instance? So I'm happy to take that on later on with you and find out exactly what the issues are for that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think it's definitely, obviously, just because it's a two-way coming, and it's not local people. I drive that all the time to work, and it's most of the time it's people who are not familiar. They'll go into one that usually find themselves caught there. I think it will be good to look at what we can do in the future.
I think it was left originally because of cost. The cost of doing that little bit was something like $500,000. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right. So we'll have a seminar at some point soon. Yeah. Okay. Do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Yeah. Okay, traffic management, item 16, Assay Place, provision of vehicle entry order. This is your favourite place, isn't it, Gordon? Traffic manager in the Willow Glen and Assay Place has been the subject of previous reports and much discussion. Following the placement of a temporary traffic order and a further extension to the end of June this year, it is now proposed to promote and implement a permanent prohibition of entry orders to Assay Place from Willow Glen Road. Callum Mackenzie will speak to the report and answer any questions. You have anything further to say on this, Callum, that you haven't said already?
I don't think so, Chair. Happy to go with that recommendation if everybody else is.
Anyway, Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say thank you very much to the department and yourself for keeping with this. I had a Manor and Castle Community Association meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it came up on the agenda, hopefully for the last time, just to see how it was going and to tell them that this was coming up, that it was going to be permanent. And the members here were delighted. It's made a big difference, and look forward to walking round Assay Place with you again Councillor Robertson.
Yes, maybe get a cup of tea the next time, Gord.
You might be.
Is that you, Colin? Any further questions? No. Do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you. Item 17, winter maintenance. This report seeks approval for the publication of a new snow clearing and ice grading contract for the period 2023-2027 and to replace a number of vehicles within the gritting fleet. There will be an opportunity to continue to review the winter maintenance policy when the relevant themed member officer working group is established, which will be the subject of a report to Corla. Also, this will form one of the planned seminars for 2022. The financial aspects of the report will be considered by the Policy and Resources Committee at its meeting tomorrow. Colin Mackenzie will speak to the report and answer any questions. You got anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll just take questions if that's okay with the members. I mean, the policy was reviewed in the past, and the decisions were previously taken not to cut down on the level of service being provided. We need the policy and operating plan to go alongside the procurement of services and the procurement of our own vehicles. So that's why the recommendations are coming before you today, but happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions, anybody? Shall I press it or not?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is my usual at every time when this comes up on the agenda, but I do appreciate the pressures that are on the department, and I do appreciate the policies in place for a reason. What I really want to ask is, I know it's going to come to a member officer working group, but before it does, has the department done a review of the roads and the usage, the people that are actually using some of these? I mean, I'm looking at 3 and 4, which are the main concerns from the gritting where I come from. I know I'm probably not alone here as the only member who's getting. I've had more representation about winter gridding than I have about any other issue in the last 10 years up in the council. There are, in my view, some justifiable cases. There are others that aren't. But that's why I wonder, has a review been done of the traffic that is now, I don't know when the last review was done of roads to assess whether it would be a priority 3 or a priority 4 or a priority 2 even. But surely the dynamics change after a period with the number of school children coming on these roads, home carers. I'm looking at nurse practitioners who are travelling in some of these areas who weren't there before and who are putting their own lives at risk to try and get from A to B in some of the roads that we have. So it's really to see, has an assessment been done, or could an assessment be done before it comes to the stage of going out to tender again? Because there are clearly 1 or 2 roads that I would like to see in my own area moved up a priority. Maybe some that are in priority 2 could move to 3, but there are some in 3 that could move to 2, I think. So it's really just to get a clearer understanding of where as a department we are with it going forward. I know it's coming up at a community council meeting in Lochs next week. They've invited a specific, unknown to us, look at the agenda this week. They've invited all the residents on one road to come along to the community council meeting. It's just so we don't open up the floodgates here, so we've got an answer for them when they do come with these solutions. And is there anything that can be done?
The short answer is that we can't take account of every journey or the use of every journey throughout the network because it changes all the time, and it'd be an impossible task for us to do, to keep a register of all home care workers and where they're going and when they're going. It's just an impossible task to do that. The one thing I can say though is that the policy is consistently applied with the information we have throughout the islands. There are many people that use the roads at different times. So you've got people going for the ferry. You know, sometimes the British haven't been out before they're travelling. So there's a number of technical matters that have been considered in when we grid and the priority system. So I'm recommending that we continue with the policy and the prioritisation that we've had for many years now. I know that there are certain areas that do voice their concerns, but to be consistent, we have undertaken that consistent approach across the islands, but we cannot look at every use or every user and where they're located. I would recommend that it can be discussed at future MOUGs, but we really need to start the process just now based on what we know and what we have experience of running. And the staff are convinced that what we have just now is consistently applied across the Western Isles.
Yes, Councillor
Just a quick follow-up. I appreciate all that, Mr. Mackenzie. I appreciate all the issues, but I fear we're putting some people into a more disadvantaged situation than we possibly could. I mean, I had one instance last year, and I'll just go into the one instance. I could come with many, where 3 gridders went off on the one run in my area. And when one person who had to actually travel on the road and put her life basically at risk, where she had to get, there was no way she could wait for, she had to get from A to B. It took her a long time to get there. And her complaint was that when she arrived into Stornoway, she found that even the car parks at Lewis-Castle College had been gridded and well gridded, whereas the road that she was travelling on to try and get in hadn't been gridded. These are just examples of what we're getting in the community, Mr. Mackenzie. I know, and I would appreciate if something could be done, or could we assess the 1 or 2 areas that are problematic and do something about it, if there's any way we could do that.
It doesn't seem unreasonable, bearing in mind that Angus particularly has raised this consistently over the last 15 years. You know, I mean, we all have our issues with gritting, you know, in certain areas, but he has been consistent on this, and you know,
the main point is consistency, and we need to be, if we open up one area for one reason, then we've got to open up the whole, every area. We can look at specific instances where things have changed, but if there's been no change or no material change, then we need to be consistent with what we do across the Western Isles, because others have voiced concerns as well from other areas. And it is difficult, but it does come down to as well people not putting themselves at risk. At the end of the day, we can never guarantee the road condition in any specific place, because you can get a shower of rain on a cold road that just turns immediately to ice. And you've got these practicalities and technicalities that you can never guarantee the road surface. We undertake this operation to the best of our ability consistently across the road network, but people need to take their own precautions as well. Do not travel if it's too risky, and that's the message we put out as well.
Just briefly again, people do need to travel, though, Mr. Mackenzie, in rural areas. There are situations when people do need to get from A to B, and this particular road that I'm talking about, I think there could actually be a cost saving to the way that it's currently being done, because the lorry is doubling back up from a loop. I'm not going to go into more detail on the operational side of it, but they're having to come back again and go back in and come out, you know what I mean? So there could be a saving in the long term if it was looked at. It's just one of a few that I have, but it keeps coming back all the time. And the fact that 3 gridders actually went off on that road in one specific day last year speaks for itself, shows the dangers that are there. And, you know, we do need to really look at there must be some leeway within the policy where I think we could look at this and try and address roads a wee bit differently if they are of concern. I know everyone's got concerns, but the ones that have serious, genuine concern, everyone will say they're all of serious concern, but these issues where I'm raising, they keep coming up every year. And I know we've tried to get a fix for them, and the days that we've had an easy fix for them, it's satisfied everyone. Whether it would be a maybe 10-minute earlier release time of getting the gridders into the area, and it would give a fulfilment of the whole area being gridded, even if it was 10 minutes saving in time. The final thing I was going to say, without going into the contracting of the gridding, I take it this is going out now. We've had the run over for 2 years from the previous gridding contract. So I take it that we're looking at all options this time with standby charges and various things, because there is a big core of cost and standby charges for these contractors that we've been hit with.
There is, that was part of the review that we have undertaken. When we do go out just now, we are anticipating higher costs as well, because up until this year, people could use red diesel. We can't anymore, so that's 3 times the fuel cost. The price of salt has also increased as well, nearly doubling. So there are going to be increased costs to the Corla, and for us to increase the service on top of that may be unaffordable. But it'll all come out as we're going through the process. But we need to base the resources required on a policy and on an operating plan. So that's what we're seeking approval just now. There can be times we can come back through the MOUG and look at specific cases, but again, we need to be consistent with how we would apply these. So, sorry, that's a bit, the only assurance I can give you, if there's any at all, is that we need to constantly review what we're doing with winter maintenance and the increase in costs and delivery of the service.
Okay, I'll let the Chief Executive in, if you put your right off, Councillor McKeever.
Thank you, Chair. We will be reviewing all the contractual terms, though, as we always do, including standing charges and whatever methodology we currently have. I mean, that has generally served us well in previous contracts, but we'll review that along with the terms, the specification and everything else, and that will come back through the member officer group and this committee.
Okay, Councillor McKeever.
Thank you, Chair. It's a time we, in a review, we should look at the situation in other council areas, like Highland Council and Argyll, for instance, when they, on occasions, have to close roads. Because let's face it, if the gridder goes off, what chance does anybody else have? And it doesn't matter what time the gridder will go, it would still have gone off probably on that day because the roads were that bad. It's something that we should be looking at. We've made a rod for our own backs for providing such a great service over the years. But the day is coming when we might have to close roads.
The only road we keep that kind of eye on is the Cleasham Whaley. It's the one that if we do lose it, then create most disruption to try and get back on. Again, in the mainland, they probably look at places like the Slough Summit and things like that, places that they know that there's difficulties with. You may be right, but again, the point I was making earlier on about people assessing the prevalent local conditions, and that's really important for people to do. Do not put yourself at risk. So it may be, Councillor McKeever, something we may need to look at more. Thank you.
But we'll have a further discussion this at the member officer working group.
And that's
sometime soon. Yeah. Okay, any further questions? Anybody? No? Insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, do members agree the recommendation of 3.1? Yeah. Item 18 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, so we will move to item 19, reports outstanding, and that's for noting, unless anybody's got any questions. No? Okay. We will now conclude the meeting and go into private to consider items 14